still don't know how I made it out. 7 days. No food, no water, no phone, no one. Just me in the wild. It started as a dare. "You won't last 2 days," they said. I laughed. I thought I'd be fine. But what I didn't realize was how quickly nature strips away the illusion of control. Have you ever been so hungry your body starts eating itself? So cold your bones feel like they're made of glass. I've been there. I slept with coyotes howling in the distance. But this isn't just a survival story. It's a story about fear, about humility, about discovering what's really inside you when the world forgets you exist. You ever wonder what you would do if no one came to rescue you? Let me take you back to day one. Before I tell you what happened out there, you need to understand why I even went in the first place. Because no one in their right mind walks into the woods with nothing but the clothes on their back, unless they're running from something. The truth is, I wasn't just trying to test myself. That's what I told everyone else, sure. But deep down, I was trying to disappear. I had just lost my job, my relationship was falling apart, and I felt like I was drowning in noise, emails, bills, people telling me what I should be doing with my life. You ever feel like that? Like, no matter how hard you try to hold it all together, life just keeps throwing punches, and one day you just stop swinging back. I needed space, silence, something real. So when my buddy joked, "Bet you wouldn't last 2 days off the grid," I smiled. But in my head I thought, 2 days? I need 7, maybe more. I picked a spot I'd seen online, a remote patch of wilderness, hours away from any city. No trail markers, no cell signal, just trees, rivers, dirt. I packed a light bag, then took half of it back out. No food, no water, no fire starter, just a camera, my clothes, and a knife I barely knew how to use. Dumb? Yeah, but at the time, it felt like the only way I'd feel anything again. The plan was simple: 7 days in the wild, alone, no tech, no talking, just me versus nature. I wasn't planning on dying out there, but I also wasn't totally sure I'd come back the same person either. I didn't tell my parents, didn't tell my ex. I told my closest friends I was taking a break from socials. That's it. It was selfish. I get that now. But when your mind is heavy and your heart's cracked down the middle, sometimes you just want to disappear so you can find out if you still matter at all. So, on a cloudy morning in early spring, I drove out past the last gas station, parked my car on the shoulder of a gravel road, and started walking. No map, no GPS, just instinct and a whole lot of unresolved pain. The trees swallowed me whole that day, and for the first time in years, I felt small, not worthless, not broken, just small. And weirdly, that felt like the beginning of something. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was how fast things would fall apart. The hunger, the cold, the fear, and the one night I thought I wouldn't wake up at all. But we'll get to that. First, let me tell you about day one. Day one started like I thought it would. The air was cool. The forest was quiet. Too quiet, actually. No horns, no screens, no voices. Just the sound of my own breathing and the occasional crack of a branch beneath my boots. I still had energy, still had that cocky voice in my head. "You got this. Easy." I even laughed at how dramatic I'd been packing, as if I was going to war. But by late afternoon, things started to shift. I reached this clearing, open, sunny, peaceful. Thought it'd be the perfect spot to settle in, so I dropped my bag, took a few deep breaths, and that's when I realized I didn't bring water. No bottle, no canteen, nothing. Just a rookie mistake that hit way harder than I expected. See, I had planned on finding a river. I'd read online that you could follow animal tracks to water. Easy, right? But there were no tracks, no streams, just dirt, and this rising, gnawing panic in my chest. You ever get that feeling when your mouth is dry, but suddenly it's all you can think about? The thirst hit fast, like my body realized, hey idiot, we need water, now. I started walking, hoping, searching. Every dried up path looked like it might, maybe lead somewhere. It didn't. And then, the sun started going down. I hadn't built shelter, hadn't started a fire, hadn't found water. And now it was getting cold. Really cold. I remember just standing there, completely still. No idea what to do next. I had imagined myself as this adventurous survivor, like something out of a documentary. But in that moment, I was just a guy, alone in the woods, realizing this wasn't a reset. This was a mistake. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. And I knew, if I didn't figure something out by morning, this whole story might end before it even began. So I did the only thing I could. I broke a few branches, lay down in the dirt, and tried to sleep under the stars. No fire, no food, no water. Just me, and a growing voice in my head saying, "What the hell have you done?" That was just day one. I didn't really sleep that night. I closed my eyes, sure, but my body, it never stopped listening. Every rustle felt like something watching me. Every snap of a twig made me flinch. And the cold, it wasn't just uncomfortable, it was bone deep. By morning, I couldn't feel my toes. When the sun rose, it didn't feel like hope. It felt like a countdown. Because now I was running on zero food, zero water, and zero plan. I knew I had to move. Sitting there wasn't survival. It was waiting to collapse. So I walked. Aimlessly, at first. Just scanning for anything. A puddle, a shadow that looked like a stream bed, birds flying in one direction. Anything. Midday heat kicked in faster than I expected. And that's when I learned something most people don't realize. Dehydration doesn't ask. It takes. It starts small. Dry mouth, dizziness. Then it hits your brain, your focus, your will. At one point, I was convinced I saw a lake ahead, like full on, shimmering water, reflections, waves. It was just heat on the rocks, a mirage. And for a second, I honestly thought, I'm not gonna make it to day 2. But then, I heard something. Not loud, not close. Just this trickle, faint, like someone dripping water out of a cup, somewhere far off. I froze, held my breath, and followed the sound. Pushed past bushes, scratched my arms, slid down a slope, and there it was. A shallow, little creek. Brown, murky, but moving. I can't even explain what that moment felt like. Joy, relief, shame, for being so careless. Gratitude, for being so lucky. I dropped to my knees and drank straight from the edge. I know what you're thinking. That's not safe. You could have gotten sick. You're right. But when your body's screaming for water and your mind's unraveling, you stop thinking about tomorrow. You just drink. That water changed everything, not just physically, but mentally, because now it was real. This wasn't some nature retreat. This was survival. And I'd just taken my first real step. The rest of that day, I started thinking differently. Started looking at the trees like tools, not scenery. Started breaking branches to mark where I'd been. Started gathering leaves for insulation. Started building something that might resemble shelter. It wasn't pretty. Honestly, it was pathetic. But it was mine. And when I curled up under that crooked frame of sticks and leaves that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. I was still hungry. Still cold. Still scared. But now, I had water. I had cover. And I had one simple goal. Make it to day 3. That night, I finally slept. Not great, but enough to wake up and keep going. By day 3, the hunger hit. Not the kind where you say, man, I could eat, but the kind where your stomach feels like it's folding in on itself, where even tree bark starts to look like food. Let that sink in. I remember staring at a bug on a log for like 10 minutes, just watching it crawl, wondering if I could actually eat it. And the wildest part, I almost did. Your body starts making deals. If you find a squirrel, maybe you just try. Maybe you dig for roots or chew on leaves. Anything. But I didn't know what was edible, and I couldn't afford to be wrong. One bad decision out here, and your story ends real quick. The weather changed too. 1 minute it was warm. Next minute, I'm soaked to the bone from a sudden downpour. No raincoat, no tarp, just wet clothes, and a shelter that now looked like wet cardboard. You ever try starting a fire with wet sticks and no matches? I tried rubbing sticks, snapping dry branches under rocks, even banging 2 stones together like some caveman. Nothing. And that night, I sat in the mud, shivering, soaked, alone. That was the night I almost gave up. I thought, maybe I walk back, just find the road, call it a failed experiment. But then I remembered, there was no road. I had walked so far off grid, I couldn't even retrace my steps if I wanted to. The trees all looked the same, and by now, my legs were starting to feel like rubber. That night, I cried. I'm not ashamed to say it. Tears just came. From the cold, the fear, the realization that no one was coming for me. And then the worst sound I've ever heard. Coyotes, or maybe wolves, I still don't know. But they were close, and they weren't alone. I held my knife, like that was going to do anything. Barely slept, eyes wide open, flinching at every crunch in the dark. The next morning, I found claw marks on a nearby tree. Deep, fresh. I wasn't imagining it. Something was watching me. And that's when I realized something. The wild doesn't care about your reasons, your heartbreak, your self-discovery journey. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't care at all. Out here, you adapt or you disappear. So, I did something I hadn't done yet. I stopped feeling sorry for myself, stopped waiting for comfort, and I started thinking like a survivor. I built a better shelter. The struggle didn't stop, but neither did I. My hands were cut. My stomach was empty. My mind was fighting to stay clear, but I wasn't crying anymore. I was surviving. And for the first time, I started to believe I might actually make it to day 7. They say everyone has a breaking point. Turns out, mine was on day 5. I woke up, and my body just didn't want to move. My legs cramped, my hands were trembling, and my head, it felt like it was filled with fog and static. I sat there, watching the sun creep through the trees, thinking, if I close my eyes again, I might not open them. That's when it happened. I tried to stand up, and everything went black. Just collapsed, right there, face first in the dirt. I don't know how long I was out. Could have been minutes, could have been hours, but when I opened my eyes, something was different. I saw footprints, fresh footprints, not mine, not animal, human. At first I thought maybe I was hallucinating, but the ground was soft from the rain, and those prints were deep, heavy, like boots. I scanned the trees, listened, nothing, just silence, but my gut was screaming. Someone had been near me, watching, passing through. I had no idea, but I wasn't alone out there anymore, and somehow, that was even scarier than being lost, because if someone was out there, why didn't they say anything? Why didn't I hear them? While they were trying not to be heard. Suddenly it wasn't just about survival. It was about safety. I didn't have a phone, didn't know where I was, didn't know who else might be out here with me, or what they wanted. And that night, I didn't sleep. I sat up, gripping that dull little knife, jumping at every sound, every shadow, every whisper of the wind. I'd faced the cold, the hunger, the fear of animals, but this was something different. This was the feeling that something was watching, and not in a spiritual, Mother Nature kind of way, but in a very real, very human kind of way. I thought the wilderness was the enemy. Turns out, people are scarier than coyotes. That was the lowest point. My body was failing, my mind was unraveling, and I wasn't even sure if I was safe anymore. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, but where would I go? Nowhere was safe, so I sat in silence, listening, waiting for sunrise, waiting for something, anything, to tell me it was going to be okay. And somehow, I made it through that night. But I knew one thing for sure. The last 2 days would be the hardest. There's something strange that happens when you're alone for that long. Not just without people, but without noise, without food, without comfort. Your mind starts talking louder than ever. By day 6, I wasn't thinking about survival anymore. Not food, not water, not how to make it to the end. I was thinking about me, who I was, who I used to be, what I had been running from all this time. Funny, right? You go into the wild thinking it's about toughness, endurance, pain. But what really happens is you meet yourself fully, without distractions, without excuses, just you and whatever's left when the noise fades. I thought about the people I hurt, the texts I never replied to, the opportunities I let pass, the days I spent being angry, bitter, instead of grateful. I thought about my mom's last voicemail, the one I never listened to, and I cried. Again, but this time, not from fear, from clarity. It's weird. In a world that moves 1,000 miles an hour, it takes absolute stillness to realize what actually matters. And out there, cold, hungry, alone, I finally saw it. Life isn't about getting it all right. It's about showing up again and again. Even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when you feel like there's nothing left. Out there, I had no job title, no phone, no likes, no validation, just breath and a heartbeat. And somehow, that was enough. I wasn't the same person I was on day one, the one who walked into the forest trying to disappear. By day 6, I didn't want to disappear anymore. I wanted to live, really live. Not for a social feed, not to prove something, not to win, but just to be. And that was the moment I stopped surviving and started healing. Day 7. I woke up and I knew. This was it. The last day. My body was wrecked. My ribs showed through my shirt. My hands were raw. My legs were heavy. But my mind was clear. I looked around at what had become my little home. The lopsided shelter, the tree with scratch marks, the stones I'd arranged into a circle for a fire that never lit. All of it felt like a different world. Like I'd aged years in just 7 days. But there I was, still standing, still breathing, still me. And that meant something. I didn't need to hunt. Didn't need to build anything else. There was no challenge left to win. I had already won. Because I didn't quit. I didn't run. And I didn't die. What I did do was learn. I learned what fear feels like when there's no one to talk to. What hunger feels like when it turns into silence. What the earth sounds like when you finally stop talking over it. And most of all, I learned I'm stronger than I thought. Not because I did something heroic. Not because I caught a fish with my bare hands or made fire from rocks. But because I stayed. In the discomfort, in the cold, in the fear. And on day 7, I walked out. Not as the same guy who thought this was just a stunt, not as the man who wanted to disappear, but as someone who chose to face himself and didn't flinch. I didn't find a deeper purpose. I didn't have some spiritual awakening. I didn't come back with all the answers, but I came back awake, alive, present. And now, every time I take a warm shower, every time I drink clean water, every time I feel sunshine without fear, I remember. I remember how close I came to giving up, how close I came to the edge, how deep I had to go to find my way back. And I remember that the wild didn't break me, it rebuilt me. So yeah, I survived 7 days in the wild with nothing, but what I found was everything. Coming back was harder than I expected. Not physically. My body bounced back pretty quickly. But mentally, that was the part no one warned me about. The noise came rushing back. Phones, cars, deadlines, notifications. It was like stepping out of a painting and into a flashing billboard. And for a while, I couldn't breathe. See, when you've been alone with your thoughts for 7 days, when you've listened to nothing but your own breath and the wind, you don't unhear that silence. You carry it with you. And suddenly, the little things you used to complain about, they seem so small. A slow line at the grocery store, a rude comment online, an email sent a little too late. None of it matters. What matters is presence, connection, simplicity. I started noticing more. The way my dog looked at me when I walked in the door, the sound of my dad's voice when he asked how I was, the smell of food I didn't have to find or fight for. I started feeling more. gratitude, stillness, peace. And slowly, I started living differently. Not drastically. I didn't go off grid, didn't sell all my stuff or preach about the woods. But I stopped rushing. I started listening to people, to nature, to myself. And when things get hard now, when life feels like it's closing in again, I close my eyes and I go back there, to that clearing, to the wind in the trees, to the moment I realized I already have everything I need. So yeah, I made it. 7 days. No food, no water, no help. Just me and the wild. And now you've heard my story. But let me ask you something. What's your wilderness? What challenge are you avoiding? What silence are you afraid to sit in? Because out there, I learned that the scariest thing isn't being alone. It's never knowing who you really are, because you were too afraid to find out. If this story meant something to you, if it made you pause, even for a second, leave a comment. Tell me where you'd go if you had to disappear to find yourself. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, you're built different, and I appreciate you. Hit that like button, subscribe for more raw stories like this, and remember, sometimes getting lost is exactly what you need to find your way back.